Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you! Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend!
Hello and welcome to episode 324 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, December 30th in the evening, New Year's Eve as it were. From Gadsden, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Karazhan, California, we got Bot.
Yo.
And from Nomergon, Ohio, we have Edelweiss.
Hello.
Hello. And from where you are, listener, we have you. Thank you so much for being here for our last podcast of the year. Been quite a 2021, but thank you for being here with us. Next special thanks to our new patrons, JS, Hoxton, and Enzo516. Thank you so much, everyone, for your support. Thank you to all of our patrons. Thank you to all of you that are just listening. Those of you that have left reviews really helps other people find the show. Thank you for doing that. And let's get into Life and Ladder. So, Edelweiss, I implored you to play a non-Hearthstone video game this past week, in addition to all the Hearthstone. We have to talk about it, but not spoiler, and not in a spoilery way.
Yeah, I played Inscription. It was good.
That's basically all we can talk about it. Yeah.
I mean, for, I suppose, mild, very mild spoiler, I would say, I was surprised at the additional depth beyond Act 1. Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that, but yes, it's the game. The game really drew me in. I was very happy playing it. Like, surprised my wife stopped mid her playthrough and said, she came over to me and said, "You need to play this game," and she was right. So strongly recommended. I have big dreams of doing a bonus episode with some people from other podcasts, but you know,
yeah,
finding free time, hard to do.
Be like 10 minutes of light spoilery content, and then, another hour or so of nerding out about the game.
Yes. How about Hearthstone? How you been doing Hearthstone?
Hearthstone, I have been playing Rogue a lot. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I've been playing Rogue. I was playing mostly the deck with Tiny Finn, Murloc Tiny Finn,
Rogue.
because that amused me. I do appreciate that, what they ended up naming it on HS Replay. I approve. But I feel like I knew even less how to play that than the list you ended up settling on. It was very interesting, set up to maximize turn 1 Secret Passages and turn 4 Edwins, but I feel like you still shouldn't do that most of the time. Although a lot of times against Freeze Shaman, you have this window where you just need to get stuff down, because come turn 6 you're gonna have problems. So yeah.
There's a lot going on there, and spoilers to the surprise of nobody, Decksplanations today, we're going to talk about Rogue a lot. I'm going to talk about Maestra Rogue, because I am addicted to the deck and I've been playing it a lot, and people have a lot of questions about it this week. It's the new hotness, so don't you worry. All your questions about Maestra Rogue and variations on that list will be discussed. So,
and then I
listen.
also finished a visual novel that I had been reading. Had some road trip themes, and I was on a bit of a road trip myself to go say hi to Cora, which was totally worth it, even though I could only stay in Chicago one day. It was great. Survived the blizzard. It was good stuff.
I'm glad you survived, and I'm glad you got to see Cora. I'm jealous.
Yeah, it was really awesome.
Bodicus, how you doing, buddy?
Doing okay. Hat also implored me to try Inscription, and then I didn't, because I've been playing mostly PoE. Lots of PoE, because they have events going on right now, which I've been somewhat enjoying, and a new one starts tomorrow, so I'm excited to try that out. The bit of Hearthstone that I have been playing, I tried has basically been me trying a bunch of decks and not enjoying my experience. So, like I saw, Hat posted a Quest Druid deck, and
Sweet.
yeah, that it beats very specific decks, and then you play against a paladin, and you wonder what caused you to be in this situation in your life. It's just the most miserable experience of just infinite freaking divine shield taunts every turn that just tilt you to no end. And then what else have I tried? Oh, I played a bit of Secret Hunter. I was enjoying that a lot.
The Drekthar deck?
Well, I say a lot. I was enjoying that somewhat, and but then I had a very tilting game when I got home from work today, where I played against a pirate warrior. In the turn before I coined out Drekthar, I drew my second minion, or my third minion.
That's all of them.
Yeah. No, I my third minion if you include Drekthar. So.
Oh, so you would have pulled out like a 4/7 or something.
Huh? Well, I would have pulled out 2 4/7s instead of 1 4/7, and it's the reason that I lost, which was a little tilting. And I also tried some Maestra Rogue, and so far all the decks have either gone over the top of me or way below me, and normally it'd be a deck that I would enjoy, but I was just losing with it a bunch. So
hopefully we can fix that.
It's a very strange deck to get used to. Like, the mechanics are weird, for lack of a better term. Really weird.
No, I don't think so. It's the type of deck that I'm used to playing. I do not think it's because, I mean, I definitely think maybe I could have played some games a little better, but that was not the reason I was losing. I was losing to, like, I would either lose to big druid that played 3 old gods in the same deck and went over the top of my minions, or I lost to like face hunters that would kill me before I could do anything.
Yeah, face hunter matchup, I find myself casting Secret Passage on 1 an awful lot. Yeah. Just so you can hopefully get some 0 mana nulls, all that stuff. There's some nuance to it, but yeah, Maestra Rogue is probably the best deck in the format, but it is certainly not unbeatable, and the sheer diversity of options right now also makes it very difficult to predict a meta, which is why you gotta be careful about trusting high legend bait deck lists like Quest Druid, which is probably pretty good if you're seeing Mozaki and Poison Rogue, but probably not as good if you're seeing Quest Warrior and Libram Paladin, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the point I'm at in ladder, I'm seeing everything.
Yeah.
Because people just play nonsense where I'm at, and
that's all of ladder. There are way too many decks right now for any experience to be all that consistent. Like, there's so much out there.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just losing a lot and it's frustrating, so I don't want to play.
Mood. Feel that?
Yeah.
Understood. As for me, this is the holiday week, which normally in my line of work, working with the public, working in the movie theater industry, this is normally the busiest week of the year. It's not right now, because the city that I'm in is rightfully scared of that whole, Omicron, COVID-19 thing. So, less business, but a lot of my staff are getting sick with either normal winter things or COVID, mostly normal winter things, but it's just kind of difficult to get people to come into work right now, because if they're sick, I don't want them coming in. So, less physical pressure than I was expecting. Different kind of pressures. But have a bunch of rapid tests here. I'm taking one every few days. So far, so good. And so it's been a little bit less back pain inducing than I was expecting, thankfully. Because normally this week is tough on the joints. But I've been, I'm kind of addicted to Alterac standards still, and I've played a bunch of stuff, but last week I picked up Cute Rogue. I think I talked about it on the show. I think that was like the first day that I was playing it, which is the Maestra list that Sazaklo came up with the Frostwolf War Masters and the Murloc Tiny Fins and the Desk Imps. Like we talked about, it's really, really good on Patched on 1, Edwin on 4. But I switched over to Jesse Alexander, got the perfect 29, but he got rank 1 with Jandis, which has to come out for the second prep, because the second prep's really good. And I'm at rank 26 right now, which is pretty high for me. I don't normally, like, I've done the double-digit thing a couple times this year, but a top 50 finish will be my first, so that's kind of cool. I'm not going to have time to play tomorrow. I'm going to be working. So we'll see if that rank holds top 50, but it's been a good month for me, and I am enjoying this deck, the Maestra Rogue deck, tremendously, and anecdotally have talked to quite a few people that also have really gelled with it, so we're going to talk about it extensively in Decksplanations, which will be the majority of the show because the Blizzard offices are closed this week. So, let's jump into news, which will be brief.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
I don't know what we're talking about because the first thing that's highlighted in the color that I read stuff just says nope.
There's no news. Well, there's a little bit of tournament news, but it's the Blizzard employees haven't done anything. Like, they nerfed and then they went on vacation. So, nope.
Yep, slow week.
Yes. But I looked back at January 2021 because there was a tweet thread right before the show started that made me realize people have a pretty distorted view of time. Someone saying that people were complaining about Garrote Rogue for the majority of the year, which is not accurate, because the first Garrote Rogue deck list was August 21st, and no one was winning with that list for like 3 weeks after that anyways. They just kept missing lethal on camera. But I looked at January 2021. We had just found out about the core set coming, or something equivalent. We actually didn't know the details yet. They nerfed Edwin. And of course, everyone's like, well, just keep it, you'll get the Hall of Fame dust. And Alec had to come out and say, well, there won't be a Hall of Fame. So, Edwin will be reverted, but the Hall of Fame as exists is going away. And we were speculating on the show, what could that mean? But we didn't know about core yet. Also, second week of January, Bogspine Knuckles got nerfed. If you remember, Evolve Shaman ruined Christmas. That was what was going on last year. So it was still in standard as a 5-mana 4/2 weapon coming back from Horde Pillagers, dropping free Corsairs until the second Tuesday in January. Along with Edwin Van Cleef, which was getting Coin Foxy Step Foxy played.
Wait, this wasn't with Desert Hare, was it?
Yeah.
Yep, Hare was in the deck. I believe
Because we had
9
Evolve,
mana.
because they brought back a bunch of old cards just to test it out, and Evolve was one of those cards, and then people were just going Desert Hare Coin Evolve on turn 3.
No, that was Doom in the Tombs. This was the different Evolve Shaman. This was 9 mana Mogu still saw play. This was the Dread Corsair build with Derailed Coaster, where you would coin out Knuckles, play the 0 mana 3/3 hit, get a 5, and then you would play Derailed Coaster and get a full board of stuff. And then you would Horde Pillager it back, and like you would just kill people with the weapon damage because you would play 4 Bogspine Knuckles a game. Knuckles,
yes,
Pillager,
I do
Pillager.
remember
Yes.
pillaging Knuckles.
Yep, so what happened in December of 2020 is they nerfed Aggro DH, Soul DH, and Highlander Hunter, so there was no aggressive deck to actually challenge Evolve Shaman, so Evolve Shaman was just kind of busted because nobody could get under it, so it became a Kobold Sticky Finger meta, because you would want to take their Knuckles and swing so they didn't get it in the Pillager pool, and you would evolve your own Sticky Finger into a 6-drop. It was dumb. So, got nerfed. Edwin got nerfed. The first mini-set was announced and released, Dark Moon Races. Looking at day 1 experiences, one co-host, his name is Bodicus, he was scared by 1 mana Nitro Boost Poison and thought it was too good. In retrospect, accurate prediction. That was true. So,
It's a lot of damage for 1 mana.
Yep. Also, a week later, they did nerf Hysteria to only target enemy minions because of the Wretched Tiller interaction. And for those of you that forgot that this was actually this calendar year, This was when people started playing Allura Coin to get tip the scales, because Crab Rider was in the deck. This was the beginning of the Nozdormu Allura deck, was in January 2021. Cat. I see cat
Didn't have to
ears.
say anything.
I wanted to. I like cats. I have a thread that I'll send you after the show of a cat interrupting board games over the holidays. Really great. I think Asperoth retweeted it. But yeah, so January 2021, a long time ago, there was no core set. There was no Forge in the Barrens. There was no one had played Deck of Lunacy competitively, and Cantor's Flow was still a meme because Spellmage had been bad for a whole year. We were still librooming people. There was no quest lines. There were still Highlander cards in Standard. Zephyrus was still in Standard back then. DQA was still in Standard. The Galacrons were still in Standard. That was this year. Crazy.
I was talking with Cora about all the potential I see in next year. And she was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. Dark what do you call it? The Demon Hunter set?
Oh, Ashes.
Ashes. Ashes is still around." And I'm like, "Yeah, we still have Skull of Gul'dan. That's an Ashes card."
It is, yes. And, I'm kind of curious to see what DH looks like without it, though it's not seeing as much play as it used to, and Demon Hunter this year has been a pleasant surprise with how much they've made it still feel like Demon Hunter, but how different it is from last year's Demon Hunter. Because it's really different.
Recent Demon Hunter feels okay. All of the other incarnations I was not pleased with.
Well, but like, Death Rattle Demon Hunter was March, April. That was as soon as Twin Slice rotated, we were like, how can Demon Hunter survive without Twin Slice and still feel like Demon Hunter? And then they figured it out. And it was cool.
I mean, I would prefer to refer to that as, what's the 8-mana card?
Illidari Inquisitor.
Demon Hunter was Death Rattle Demon Hunter is just Illidari Inquisitor Demon Hunter, because all of the Death Rattles just make sure you survive until you play Illidari Inquisitor, and then somehow your opponent's life vanishes because they don't have it anymore after you play that card.
There was a pretty funny clip in the Discord where I think it was Pilot posted a replay where they went Solar Cenarian, got 2 Inquisitors, they survived, and next turn involved a hero power to the face for lethal as Druid.
That is 17 damage.
Well, you get to attack with them, so it's 33 damage, which is more.
Right. Next turn. Yeah.
They won. They won the game.
I think pretty much any scenario where someone untaps with Illidari Inquisitor, pretty sure they win most of the time.
Yeah. Well, remember in the Barons meta, Illidari Inquisitor was one of the best late game drops and was ending games because it was a turn faster than Alex, which was format defining. Oh, how long ago that feels. Where Alex on 9, people were like, they should nerf that. I think we're fine. I think it's okay.
I did see a very nice clip of a Freeze Shaman playing against 2 Illidari Inquisitors that were frozen, and then that interaction doesn't work how the Shaman wants it to.
Yeah. Though it's worth noting, there's some weird inconsistencies with freeze effects between auto-attacking minions. Gangster, if frozen, it doesn't attack. Swamp King Dread, if you're going way back when it's frozen, doesn't attack. And Lothar, this is the weirdest one. I understand that I said Lothar, and you all have to work pretty hard to remember that's a card. It's a 7 mana 7/7 warrior legendary. At the end of the turn, of course you do. At the end of the turn, it auto-attacks an enemy minion. If it kills it, gets +3/+3. If it's frozen when it does the auto-attack, it does not unfreeze. It should, per the rules, but there's something up with the scripting. It's scripted slightly differently. It doesn't count as having skipped an attack. Illidari Inquisitor will attack just fine when it's frozen, because you're telling it to, whereas Swamp King Dread and Gangster, for whatever reason, they do not auto-attack on their own while they're frozen. So they're all coded slightly differently. I don't know what it's supposed to do, but it seems like at least one of those is a little weird. But also, most of these things don't come up very often, because Swamp King Dread is a 5-year-old card. Lothar is unplayable. And go ahead, Edelweiss. Go ahead, explain to me how I'm wrong.
Look, we just haven't had a sufficiently board-based meta for it to matter.
Have you not been playing Maestra Rogue? That deck is just exclusively board.
Well, yeah, but it's not the only thing out there.
Yeah, like the from hand Paladin decks. And they're killing you from hand. Oh wait, those don't exist either.
If someone plays Libram of Hope, that's a different situation.
Okay, what about against Quest Warrior? That's pretty board based.
Yeah, it'd be pretty solid against Quest Warrior.
Yeah, you could play it and then kill one of the pirates, and then it kills you with the weapon. So like that'd be fun.
Oh, no, you've been rushing this whole game. It's
all right. We
It goes
top
into
our
conditioning
Rush Warrior
deck.
curve because why have Troublemaker when you could be worse? So, anyways, Lothar doesn't come up very much. That's all I'm saying. I don't envision there being a lot of interaction where people are like, I lost the game because my Lothar stayed frozen. That just no one knew about it until Hearthtech posted a YouTube video showing off that they found this interaction, then built a board state to demonstrate it. Because how else would you ever see it? But sorry, Lothar. It's just not a thing. Anyways, they're all a little weird. They're all a little different. But it's been a fascinating year of Hearthstone. But there's no news right now because the offices are closed. Blizzard employees are chilling. They deserve it. Want to jump into tournaments real quick?
Sure.
Sure.
It's the grand tournament!
All right. Let me get this thing from Ebar. Oh, here it is. So, the big news this week, I'm not even going to call it big news. But there was a ban levied this week. A player named Jay Wong, who has been well known in competitive circles for being I'm gonna try and be diplomatic. Not always the nicest person. Known stream sniper, has made misogynistic comments in the past that got public. Just not a person with a history of conducting themselves well. There was a clip posted by Jay Alexander, who, is rank 1 legend relatively recently. He it's gonna be strange because they're both names that start with J. Jesse was streaming. Jay was streaming. They queued into each other. There's a clip of Jay's stream where he says, "Oh, I don't know what to play around. Let me go open his stream." Opens his stream. You hear the audio from Jesse's stream in the background and just snipes him while he is streaming. Pretty brazen. Pretty excessive. You can't do that. It's cheating. So, Abar on Twitter just said, "Hey, thanks for the report. We've updated the player list. Ban him for 4 months." Now, 4 months is very particular ban amount, right? It's atypical. So, he was asked about it by Pascoa. And the tweet from Abar is the important thing here. "Different penalties for different infractions. Eric and I have been working with other games teams to standardize player conduct expectations and infractions. One of our big projects for 2022, play nice, play fair." This is the thing I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about the behavior of the known sniper getting, I'm not even going to say caught for sniping, I'm going to say advertising himself sniping, then facing consequences. In some circles on Hearthstone social media, this is apparently a debate. I don't think the three of us think it's a debate. If you stream snipe, that's not good and you shouldn't do that. And if you face consequences for it, so be it. But I'm curious what we think of setting up this kind of penalty structure.
I think it is always helpful to make boundaries known and, what is the, price that you're going to end up facing and making sure it's consistent. So while I think it would have been nice if there was a longer ban in this instance, I also think the reasons that people on this list are banned for longer definitely merit it. So yeah, having a penalty meets the offense makes sense. And of course, just because they're banned for 4 months doesn't mean they can't get banned again when they come back, right? It's if the behavior continues and it's turned in again, like of course, I'm sure they'll be ready to throw down the ban hammer again. But I think it's just important that people know consequences are going to be happening and that it's something they've been thinking about, because many reasons people give for some of this behavior is, well, no one gets punished, so if everyone's doing it, it's just another tool in the toolbox. And it becomes this sort of, oh, you think you're better than me for not doing this thing, but everyone's doing it. Kind of bizarro world. I think the most common thing is like with co-oping for tournaments, where it was sort of like, there's no good way of monitoring that and catching people, because how do you prove someone's in a Discord call without basically someone ratting out their own people? So it becomes this thing of, look, we're doing it because everyone's doing it, and that's just never a good situation to be in. This was obviously very overt, and I suspect that if there were a very overt co-oping situation, they would also throw out a penalty for that. So I'm glad to see that they're taking action on this front.
It's also interesting because, like, I don't know, co-oping for tournaments and stuff like that is just a clear violation in cheating, and obviously hard to catch. But then, like, there's also co-oping on ladder too, right? When does that become, like, that's not like co-oping in the first couple days of ladder, kind of whatever, but what if it's tomorrow and there's actual stuff on the line and people are co-oping for high finishes on the ladder that gives invites? At what point is that, like, where do you draw the line? Is it okay to co-op on ladder as long as you're not playing for anything? And at one point, are you playing for something?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and that's where people get into debate, because the line is different for everyone. And personally, I would be of a mind that, yeah, when you're playing sort of earlier on ladder, I mean, I know I liked watching co-op streams between people because it's that fun energy, the banter, people debating plays.
And you learn a lot. You learn a lot
totally.
more co-oping than you do playing solo.
And I think we've mentioned how we love the 3v3 tournaments when they're able to bring up the comms of the players involved. Those are such cool events to watch. So it's always interesting to get different players' perspectives on what to do in certain situations. But I would say that, yeah, it becomes a tougher sell for me if you're playing for keeps, right? Once you're trying to once there's like money and official like places on the line and stuff, to share a story from my earlier days in Hearthstone. So Meaty had a tweet recently where he kind of did a poll of how many people have done any kind of cheating in Hearthstone. And I responded, but I also replied and said there was a time when I first started playing Hearthstone and I was nobody. I wasn't in any communities. I was new to even using Twitch at all. I had come from Magic, was very much on my own, had never hit Legend, and I am now ashamed to say that a couple of times during my early Hearthstone days, I would recognize a name and bring up their stream, and I stream sniped. I didn't know there was a name for it. I didn't know that this was a thing, and I didn't really comprehend of like it being so bad. And then I heard streamers talk about it, and I thought about it, and I was like, well, yeah, this is pretty unfair that I'm getting this edge just because they're putting themselves out there. And obviously, in retrospect or outside looking in, it's like it's easy to tell that now. But at the time, it was sort of like, I felt really guilty. I was like, oh, I did a bad thing. And from that point on, I would only ever, after finishing the game, check to see if the person had been streaming and maybe try and get a reaction. Because often I was playing weird decks, like not meta stuff. And so, if I managed to get a win, it would be cool to see someone's reaction to whatever deck I was playing. But, I wouldn't do that today. And I think part of how I was able to convince myself that it wasn't a big deal was that I wasn't competing for anything. That I was just trying to hit legend, and I wasn't qualifying for anything, playing for any money. But once you're playing for keeps, I think a definitive line needs to be drawn in the sand.
I mean, on ladder, like, this is just going to happen. It's because it's fluid, and at what point in the month is it okay? At what rank is it okay? Like, it's, at really high legend, especially with the decks that are good right now, I don't even know that co-oping is a huge benefit. Because you co-op a Garrote Rogue turn, like, you'll rope out, and then you'll miss lethal. But, I mean, it's, on ladder, this is going to happen. The question is, there's this whole thought process, right? Can it be policed effectively? If no, do I have any moral obligation to not do it? If I feel the answer to that is yes, but other people do it anyways and they face no accountability, does that mean it is now morally acceptable? That whole train, like, is very clear to follow how people land in the idea of co-oping, stream sniping, whatever is okay, because I don't face consequences for it, which is why I'm glad that Abar did something here, making it very clear, like, no, this is bad. You're gonna face consequences if we find out that you did this. Of course, you can just not be super brazen about it and then not face consequences, but the idea of the message being sent by the person that runs esports saying, doing this is bad, that's enough by itself to disincentivize some people. But co-oping is not something that's going to stop happening. In a tournament, that seems like actively cheating by every definition and seems more easy to monitor, just because I know that for some tournaments, like, they actually monitor what programs you have open. They have you be on cam. It's much more difficult to co-op, and they actively don't want you to do it. On ladder, like, I wouldn't do it if I was pushing for a finish, but if somebody else did, or, like, if it's someone that's a grandmaster that's gotten high single-digit ranked, if it's language hacker, right? Say, for example, I just picked someone out of a chat, because high language hacker. It's someone like language hacker. Rank 100 to them is not an exciting, dizzying height that they have to work super hard for. That's probably in the low end of where they normally sit. So co-oping a deck at that point is like us co-oping in low legend, because it's just not an area where we normally, like, worry too much about the quality of competition, can climb out of it when we want to, if we want to. Is co-oping at rank 100 for someone that is used to top 10, is that cheating? Probably not for them. For someone that normally is top 1000 legend, and they co-op their way to top 100, they are leveraging outside resources to get to a higher rank. It becomes very difficult to draw a line there, so really, like, on ladder, there's not really going to be a way around this. But if I were going for a high finish, I wouldn't want to do this, because I wouldn't want there to be an asterisk on my number. I wouldn't want to feel like there's an asterisk on my number, and there's going to be a point in competition. If you say ladder is okay but not tournaments, if you say qualifiers are okay but not master tours, there's going to be a point in that progression where co-oping is going to be stopped because they will catch you, and you can't do it anymore, and that means failing to develop the skills of winning without co-oping will become a hindrance to you and not a help. So there's a point where it's actually valuable to not do this anymore. But it's hard to say exactly where and when on ladder that this needs to stop happening. And if someone that's normally top 10 is streaming themselves co-oping a random deck doctor or whatever at rank 100, that person is not gaining value from the co-op. So there's so much nuance here, as an example.
Well, someone brings up an interesting point, like, how is co-oping different than coaching someone to play Hearthstone? In a lot of ways, not terribly. I think the implication with co-oping is that you are usually of similar skill, and so you can each give, potential advice to the other, right? Obviously, it's still on one person's account, but that's really the only distinction. I mean, with our coachings, yeah, generally someone's playing games and we're giving advice. It's a similar kind of vibe. It's just a different hierarchy in terms of, one person is in the position where they feel they need coaching. And so presumably they're not then playing at a level where they're trying to qualify for Masters tours.
Yeah. Well, and we do a lot of coachings here, and like,
Yeah.
I feel like it adds value to the people that we coach. And would the people that they are playing against be thrilled to know that they were playing against two people, one of whom is out of place for the rank? Maybe, but it's just a single Hearthstone game, and it's not for any kind of financial return. I think the value of doing a coaching is much better than the quote unquote consequence of the person being supported in a way outside of the game. Like it just, I don't think it matters enough, and I think that coaching is a huge net positive. And it's kind of hard for coaching to make that kind of a difference at top 50. Like, I don't envision that would be the thing at top 50. Maybe, like, if Gabby's rank 1, he's coaching someone up to rank 50. I don't know. That would feel a little weird. But yeah, Hacker is saying in the chat, it's the way Blizzard has defined it is outside of High Legend, which isn't at the end of the month. So, like, unless you're pushing for top 50 at the end of the month, it's kind of hard for it to be something that's really consequential. And, okay, I get it. And I wouldn't feel like co-oping if it wasn't like a super duper high legend grandmaster level player boosting someone that isn't. If it's not that, I would be hard pressed to call it cheating. But it's not like there's any way to really leverage firm consequences here anyways. It's a complicated topic.
Yeah. And I know I have been part of running an event where we had part in person, part remote. And what we did for the people, playing from an area we could not have supervision over to prevent co-oping, we had them be in a Discord call with their camera on. So we could see that there wasn't someone in the room with them, and because they were in a Discord call with us, they couldn't be in a call with someone else because we would hear it.
Yeah. But I bet co-oping happens a lot. I bet it happens in qualifiers all the time. I bet it happens all the time in qualifiers.
Yeah, because your friend gets out early, and then if you keep going, then your friend is like, "I'll just help you." But yeah, it's kind of crappy, but it is also very difficult to monitor 100%. So pretty much all they can do is apply penalties to ones that they can apply penalties to, and if they can figure out a way to track it better, great. And if they can't, there's not a whole lot we can do about it, other than try to make the culture of the competitive scene realize that it's frowned upon, and hopefully less people do it. And I will say that the only stream sniping I have ever done was when I tried to Q snipe Hat when he was streaming so that I could play against him with a deck that was really good against whatever the hell he was playing. But yeah, I don't think I'm fairly confident that I have not stream sniped anybody, but I have been accused of it before in reviewing somebody's VODs, which was not a very great experience to be a part of, but much in the past.
What's interesting to me is like, well, after knowing everything about it and all the thoughts and bad feels and everything and thinking about it, like, yeah, if someone were to accuse me of stream sniping today, I would be really offended and hurt, because that's not something I would do, and so it's kind of like impugning one's honor. So the thought of doing it so brazenly is like just so foreign to me, and I don't understand like what's missing there to not feel that guilt.
You're not a sociopath. Yeah.
Yeah, so far, I mean, we don't want to talk about it too much, but so far, every one of Jay's actions is so far beyond my comprehension of what a human thinks about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't even know anything about this person going into the week, except that they were a notorious stream sniper. I didn't know any of the other kinds of stuff that's been mentioned. I sort of only saw Baby Bear's tweet, and I think it's good to mention that these types of things are often, it's kind of a weird thing. It's kind of like an extra layer of sort of sexism at play, where it's like, to even be in the position of cheating is because it's like more normal to do so as a guy. I don't know if I'm wording this properly, but like women are more inclined to not want to touch that in the slightest way because you don't want people to say that, oh, some guy got you to where you are.
Yeah, it's when your performance is already under a microscope, you have to play cleaner to make sure that no rough edge is ever used against you in the future, which they often are. That's been something that back in the women gaming episode was brought up a couple times. That just, even association with a known good player, a known good male player would cause problems for the woman down the line. But anyways, I don't really want to give the person in question attention because they're very good at garnering it, and I don't think that they deserve it. So just saying that I'm glad that someone faced accountability for their actions, and I think it is a good thing for the esports team to make sure that people are aware this is something they care about. And that means that there are some people out there that didn't know that before, or at least had plausible deniability for not knowing that now know, hey, if you stream snipe and you get caught, you will be banned for at least some period of time. So, good to put that out there. But on the happier news, let's talk about the meta a little bit from the VS report this week. I'm going to read a quote from this article. Zach worked on it for 15 hours, writing the report, not to mention the deck list refinement. There are 43 published deck lists in the report. 43, including 8 druidless. 8. Insane amount. The quote here: the first thing that we want to say about the current meta is that there are more viable decks in the format than the player base and content creators can even handle. There are a ridiculous number of competitive decks seeing very little play and going through very little refinement work. We've worked to address and feature all of them, even when we were limited by sample size issues with some. These new decks will also naturally look worse than established decks that have been through refinement, so we need to get the ball rolling before we can tell how they truly match up. They added a low sample size estimate table. There are a few decks that are on there at top 1k legend. Poison Rogue, Clown Druid, Drekthar Druid, Evolve Shaman. Garrote has low sample size. Quest, Lifesteal Demon Hunter. No, Brute Demon Hunter. Yeah. Ramp Druid, Miracle Priest, and Secret Hunter all have too low of a sample size. But even if you look at legend at tier 1, 5 tier 1 decks, 5, 10, 11 tier 2, 6 tier 3, 5 in tier 4. There's a lot going on here. Tremendous amount of stuff. So, there are 5 rogue decks listed. There are 7 shaman decks, 8 druid decks. The closest thing the game has to a quote-unquote dead class is priest, but Miracle Priest still looks competitive, especially at higher levels of play. Usually, people are going for the Jombre innovation now, where they have been cutting Sethic and going for Malygos instead, but I believe that it's still better to do the Drekthar Sethic thing, and even though there's no Iron Deep Trog in it anymore, the deck can still be powerful and make really ridiculous board states really quickly. Just, you have to make sure that you don't let Rogue get to 7 mana, because you do not want to get scabbed. You don't want that to happen, so just be aware. But the amount of variety out there right now is... I don't remember ever having this many options in a standard format. I remember every class being playable. I remember there being multiple options per class. I don't ever remember this kind of variety.
Well, I mean, one of the classes is all 10 classes, right?
That too? Yeah. Ah, Maestra. She's fun. I'm gonna, when we get to the Decksplanations, I'm gonna talk about Reconnaissance for a while, about how much I love that card. Talk about it for a while. But yeah, so whatever you want to play, you can probably play it. Priest and Mage are the sketchiest in terms of options, and Paladin doesn't have a ton going on. It's still hand buff and Librams, but they're both good. Priest, you can play Quest and Big. They aren't performing as well, though I know Wicked Good has been doing well with Quest Priest because he is the Priest Whisperer. Warrior is fairly limited. It's really just Quest right now. Control has been ruminating. There's a little bit out there. But there are still so many options everywhere, and I do think that Wildfire Mage has some depth to it that just hasn't quite been explored yet. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it right now. But the deck. You ready, Edelweiss? You ready, Bauticus? You ready to go to Decksplanations and talk some Rogue?
Let's do it. Haven't had a real Decksplanations in like a while.
Yes, let's go.
So this deck, whether you want to call it Maestra Rogue, Burgle Rogue, whatever, Tempa Rogue, controversial term.
It's honestly, I think Burgle's controversial. We only have one card that burgles, and it doesn't even steal from the opponent's class anymore.
That's true. Yeah.
I
from
think
just a class not your own.
If you call it Burgle Rogue, you're a Hearthstone boomer. There, I said it.
Probably accurate.
Do you remember
what? Literally called Swashbuckler. It's
but he doesn't burgle anymore. He's reformed. He's now like he goes to thrift stores. He's like Swash Thrifter. He finds something cool. I don't know. It's do you remember when the actual card Burgle was printed? The first Burgle effect.
Yeah.
The Grand Tournament.
Ooh, it was 3 mana, pull 2 cards from your opponent's class.
Yeah. It was worse Thought Steal.
Yeah.
But you could prep it out for 0 back then.
That's true.
Yeah. Or like prep out better cards. But you could prep that one for 0.
Back when he prepped Fan of Knives.
Or Blade Flurry. That was kind of a good one too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, moving on.
Yeah.
So,
hold on.
Effect itself.
Hold on a second. Bauticus is basking in the memory of Prep Oil Blade Flurry. I want to share that with him. We're just going to lean back. We're going to bask for a second.
Oh, I didn't play a whole lot of oil, but I definitely prepped a Blade Flurry or even just prepping Coin Prep, Fan of Knives, Edwin. Oh, it was... Okay. All right. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt whenever that happened.
All right. We can move on now.
The best is when you draw the Edwin off of the card you draw off Fan of Knives.
Oh yeah. Oh. And when they have something for you to backstab too, you kill the Flame Imp. Get him. Get him. Oh, yeah. Man. We're old bodies. What happened?
Make me choke on my tea, jeez. Anyway. Burgle effects have gotten better since those days. Used to be you stole only from the opposing class, but that meant if you were playing against a rogue, you got screwed. And so any of your cards that required you to have cards from other classes were turned off. Now that happens when you somehow Maestra into rogue, which is not supposed to happen. I believe they're working on that. That hasn't happened to me yet, so I don't know.
There's a workaround. Okay, so what happens is, what is going on is when it pulls from the pool of classes, it actually looks at your favorite hero portraits. But for any class where you don't have one selected, for some reason, sometimes that can roll into rogue. So the workaround, if you have more than one portrait for every class, is to just go into your collection, make sure all 10 classes have a favorite portrait picked. But if you only have one portrait for a class, you can't do that, so sometimes you get Maestra bugged. It's a workaround. So
that's why I've never had it. Okay.
Same. Yep. Because we're whales.
You heard it here first. Pay to win.
Pay to win. And there's a note about Maestra when you're disguised. If you have regular Maestra, your hero power will be non-golden. If you have golden Maestra, your hero power is golden. Actual pay to win.
Although, in all honesty, you know, people figure it out when you trade your first rogue card. They kind of get the sense that you're not whatever class you're pretending to be.
Look, Priest could have Cutlass, you don't know.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Weird thing about this deck, you often keep a tradable card. Just to trade it turn 1. Because a core around this, why we maybe call it Maestra Rogue, is because the tempo of Wild Paw Null is completely absurd. And historically, Burgle Rogue decks have been good when they have high tempo plays. Previously, that was a 2-mana 2/3 that became a 2-mana 3/4 rush if you had a card from another class, and a 4 damage spell that costs 0 mana if you had a card from another class. That was the last time this kind of stuff was good. Now we have Double Agent, which is 6/6 worth of stats for 3 mana, your pair of 3/3s, and then Wild Paw Null, which is more often than not, I feel like, a 0 mana 4/5 rush, which is a lot. Yeah, it's really good. So Maestra has a very interesting interaction where, because you are appearing to be another class, every rogue class card you draw while you are disguised counts for discounting Wild Paw Null. And if you get to turn 3, you could also play a Double Agent as long as you have rogue cards in your hand, and it will be active. Usually, I think you want to reveal yourself before turn 3, but it does come up. So this deck doesn't have a ton of actually get stuff from other classes in it, because you usually use those first couple of turns to discount your Wild Paw Null while you're appearing to not be a rogue. But your activators otherwise are Wand Thief, Swashbuckler, and Reconnaissance. And the deck does have Shadow Step, so you Shadow Step Wand Thief a fair bit with this deck, I would say. It's not always the best target, but it gives you a lot of kooky options, and I've definitely gotten some Potion of Illusions, had some very high Wand Thief games. It'll happen.
Also some runes. You can rune some people.
Oh yeah, and with 2 preps, it's a lot smoother to play the occasional Potion of Illusion. But
sometimes I keep it.
You keep the prep?
Sometimes.
Is that right, Hat?
It is. Sometimes it's good. Yes.
Yeah. Which is exactly what I used to say. Because, wait. Weren't you on always keep prep and I was on never keep prep?
Yes.
So it's somewhere in between both of us?
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm okay
And
with
now
it. I'm okay
we
with
live
this.
we live in the in-between world now. And of note, there's going to be a tips and tricks section at the end. I'm just going to say this one first. Right, because it's the cards that you draw off your first spell for while you're wearing the mask count towards null discounts. So you sometimes go turn 1 coin Swindle. But if you try and prep the Swindle, you will be sad, because prep is a rogue card, and you will take your mask off, and then you will Swindle and it'll be good, but it won't discount your nulls. That is the new prep coin Concede. It's prep rogue card Concede. So you can keep prep, but don't play it first.
Probably don't need to concede, but yes, it is not great. Similarly, don't prep Secret Passage, because there are times where you will Secret Passage on 1, which sounds insane, because, you don't have mana after that, but then you get a prep Recon or a Wild Paw Null, and that's pretty good, because you Secret Passaged and you probably got some rogue cards, and it probably doesn't cost any mana anymore, so... particularly against aggressive decks where you really want that get on board quickly, Secret Passage on 1 can often be pretty decent. Usually when it's coin Secret Passage, if I'm completely honest, because then you can at least play a Swashbuckler or a Wand Thief and maybe Shadow Step it, depending. I would say with this deck, far less than the Tiny Fin, the cute version, you won't do much... Secret Passaging on 1, but it is sometimes correct.
Yeah, it's a matchup specific thing that I'll talk about that when we get into the matchup options. But unless you really need to get on board quickly, I think the Face Hunter matchup in particular is the one where I am by far the most likely to passage on 1, because getting under Biscuit and Mount is hugely important to enter the mid game at 25 health versus 15 health. And if you're at 15 on turn 5, then you lost, and if you're at 25 on turn 5, you probably won. So that's going to be the matchup where I do that by far the most, and there are not very many others where you really have to get on board quickly where a swing turn won't get you back, but Face Hunter, you need to deny every point of damage they have.
Something that makes me very happy about this deck as well is that it doesn't run Field Contact, because I'm very tired of Field Contact stuff swing turns, and this still has some really good swing turns, and it does not feel like it has a lack of card draw because Secret Passage is a good card and Tradable is a pretty solid mechanic. But Hat, I still sort of struggle sometimes with, mulligans and game plans and stuff. How does this deck really play? What are we supposed to do here?
So, I'm glad you asked, Settle, because we do a whole bunch of things. Got some mulligan stats up on the screen here, but it's important to note, this deck has a million billion micro decisions because none of your cards cost very much, and so you'll be playing a lot of cards in short periods. You'll be generating cards a lot. If you liked the Year of the Dragon stuff, especially if you like Whirl Kick Rogue, this has a somewhat similar vibe because you make cards, and you end up in very goofy game states quite often. Rune of the Archmage is, I'm not going to say consistent, but if you really want it, you can go get it. I've been fire sailed in the Rogue Mirror many, many times. But the combination of Swashbuckler and Reconnaissance, one of my favorite games was when I played my Tamsin hero to clear the board. No, my Tavish hero. I played my Tavish hero to protect my board, and I killed him before I had the chance to play my Kurtrus hero. So, you just end up in games where you get really, really goofy stuff going on. But you're also the best early game board deck in the game. And that is the main reason to play this. You are so good at fighting for board. It's very common in the early game to just be quite aggressive. Coin Double Agent on 2 is one of your weaker openings, but it happens a lot. And in different matchups, you'll vary a lot. You get fast 0-mana 4/5 rushers quite often, or cheap 4/5 rushers. You get wide boards. You can activate Prize Plunder very quickly, and Swashbuckler, Wand Thief, Coin Plunder is fairly common, that sort of thing. Against Hunter, for example, on the coin, I'll probably keep Prize Plunder along with a Swashbuckler or Wand Thief, and so you can just coin double 1-drop and kill their thing. Happens a lot. You get to just kind of get on the board and stay on the board. You have a lot of mid-game generation and power, but also just good board control tools. SI7 Extortion is a very efficient removal spell. Prize Plunder, again, it's just great. You can use your Wicked Stabs for board control as needed, and this list does play that. Or you can just start making some stuff. Reconnaissance, the 2-mana spell that generates a class Death Rattle that is not a neutral and not a rogue card. It will get you a class Death Rattle, reduce it by 2. If you prep that out, you're basically innervating, right? Pre-nerf innervate, 2 mana crystals, and you end up with you can get a turn 3 Greybow. And then what other decks that try and fight for board end up doing? I got a Coilfang Warlord for 6 mana the other day, very powerful. There are a lot of things that you can do and generate. I lost a Rogue Mirror today when they reconnaissanced into Murgur McGurgle, played Scabs into Scabs Hero Power Murgur Prime Prep Potion of Illusion.
Oh my.
And I was unable to beat the second Murgur, which generated 2 4/5 Taunt Divine Shield amalgams, and their first Murgur had the Divine Shielded Rush Murloc that gives all your other Murlocs a rush. I was unable to get through the board. You get in these insane game states. But early game, build a board fast, kill their stuff. Mid game, stay in the board, build some pressure, don't die to their wide removal spell if they have one. Late game, kill them with Smite and Wicked Stab, and play Scabs if you're behind because that card is busted. There will also be sometimes less than you might think, but you've certainly heard about it, where Edwin, as has been talked about before, the new Edwin, it draws a card and it buffs that card in your hand. When you play it, you draw another one and Edwin gets +2/+2. It doesn't matter where Edwin is. So if you Shadow Step him, he will get buffed in your hand if you keep playing that card. Even if he's in a secret passage, even if you passage him away, he still gets buffed in the passage. So sometimes what you will do is you will play Edwin, Shadow Step him, then play the chain cards, make him huge in your hand, then you play Smite, Edwin, and attack. That happens sometimes, not that often, but often enough that you should know that it's an option. But when you're playing this deck, you really want to think of it as aggressive and board-focused and really, really fast to get on board. You can play for value. Sometimes that's correct, and the power of the deck is its flexibility. But more often than not, you're getting stuff down on the board faster than it feels like you should be, and then winning through those advantages.
So when do you usually look for your swing turn? And what hero powers are you happy to see? I think sometimes I'm never sure how long I should be tapping.
Yeah.
When I get Warlock.
It's tricky. I really rarely keep the mask on past, I rarely end turn 3 with the mask on. Usually I I demask turn 2, but sometimes it's turn 3. If you tap on 2 as a Warlock in a slower matchup, you can do that. It depends what you're playing against. And in some matchups, like say against Quest Warrior or Paladin in particular, they can kind of keep up with 1 minion at a time, unless your minions are really, really big. They can't deal with giant swing turns, right? We know Quest Warrior in particular we can really use as a great example. Here's what Quest Warrior is going to do. They're going to play the quest on 1. Turn 2, if they're going first, they're going to play a 2-mana 2-2. It is a pirate. Sometimes it will draw them a card, sometimes it will not. Occasionally it will be a 2-3. Turn 3, they will play a 4 health minion. It will be either a 3-4 that gains them 2 attack, or a 2-4 that gains them 4 armor. That's what's going to happen. If you know that's going to happen, Coin Double Agent, if they have a 2-2 into the 3-4, is not always that great, right? They attack in the 2-2, they attack in with their face, they have a 3-4 versus your 3-3, it's only okay. But if you just tap on 2 and wait, and they do that, and then your turn 3 or 4 is like Coin, Double Agent, Noel, Plunder, Wand Thief, whatever, like if you just place 5 minions that turn, their follow-up Defias Cannoneer, Whetstone Hatchet, which is what they're going to do on turn 4, or maybe a Sword Eater, is just not really all that good. So you can build a huge swing turn. Paladin's about the same way. Their wide removal at this point is Barov, Samuro, and Cariel. So as long as you make sure that you get them off the board, your entire board doesn't die to Samuro, you have refill, and try and kill them before Cariel, because boy, she's so annoying. Oh my god, it takes forever. And all my damage just happens. It's not a Cariel discussion, but she's really annoying. But that's all. They can't play Liberum of Justice anymore. So if you can get on the board really quickly, turn 2 or 3, you just kind of hit them in the face for a few turns, even if they wipe your board with Samuro. Then usually you've brought them down to a low enough light total that, like, Smite Prep Stab will be enough.
So, what would you say makes the deck fun to play? Like, apart from, obviously, you have some super crazy swing turns.
You get to do everything.
Apart from being a rogue deck.
Yes, but it's a rogue deck and also all the other rogue decks. Gallon, I know we're rounding up. We don't always get Mask of Cthulhu here. Mask of Cthulhu, by the way, really good against Cariel. If you're playing against a Cariel, discover Mask of Cthulhu. It deals 10 pings. So, really good. Because they each deal 1 damage, so it's full damage. But you are a rogue deck, you get to do the swing turns, you get to do good damage, but also you get to play with cards from other classes. And the 2-mana Discount and Reconnaissance makes a lot of these cards really playable. I was watching a replay where, it was one of Zako's replays, he was playing against Quest Rogue. He had a secret up, he counterspelled their stealth on Quest Reward Scabs, the stealth gizmo, and then next turn, Najak Hexen into Scab's Hero.
Oh, no.
Who doesn't want to do that right now? Who doesn't want to go and do that right now? Najak Hexen, just yoink it. Then Scab's Hero. This is mine now, and I get to Najak again. You Shadow Step it. Sometimes you get Fell Soul Jailer, the 5-mana 4/6 Warlock card. They discard a card. When it dies, they get it back. No, you just step it. They don't get that card back. Sometimes you get a Grey Bow. Sometimes you get we talked about this. We went through all this stuff. Reconnaissance is one of my favorite cards to play with just because of the variety it makes. But Swashbuckler, there are a lot of really interesting cards in Standard, and you kind of get to make it work sometimes and see what you end up getting. Besides the hero cards, you can get literally anything. There's some really goofy cards out there. I won by Swashbuckling a Void Touch Attendant earlier today. Also very good in this deck. I went Void Touch Attendant. I had a Primordial Studies from a Wand Thief, Guild Trader from a Wand Thief Primordial Studies. Guild Trader, Void Touch Attendant, 2 fully loaded Wicked Stabs, take 18. Yeah, that's pretty cool. For me, I liked it. I don't know if they did.
Yeah, I think the huge difference between just discover a Death Rattle minion and discover a class Death Rattle minion is way more than can be put into words. There's just so many neutral Death Rattle minions that are pretty underwhelming, but when it's limited to class things and it's a discover, you can get some really nice stuffs. Every once in a while you have a whiff, not quite what you're looking for. You get some very low-end primes. The Priest Prime is often underwhelming, but on average the primes are pretty solid. Getting Solarian Prime can be pretty entertaining. You mentioned earlier McGurgle Prime, and sometimes you just get a bunch of primes because you get Envoy Rustwicks.
Yeah, it's fun though. It makes your secret passages pretty rough. It's because you
That's
passage into a
true.
bunch of 9s. That's not so good. But yeah, I've like earlier today, I reconnaissance into a the 8-mana 5/7, the enhanced Dreadlord, and so it turned on my Warden of Chains, which I swashbuckled into because that's a normal interaction in a rogue deck. Just make an old Demon Hunter 4-mana 3/8 taunt because I was holding a big demon. It's so goofy.
And I think of note, people played with Contraband for a long time. It doesn't make the cut anymore.
By a long time, you mean like
Unsurprising.
4.5 days, right? Like it's...
Yeah, I mean, it's Alterac. People were trying it for a while, and then, we decided, hey, what if we just killed them? So, I mean, that's usually the way decks develop, is you cut the fancy for what if we just killed them. And certainly the Wicked Stabs help in that direction. I think that was actually something with the cute version that I very much missed some of the time, was that reach of having Wicked Stab. Because something that can happen is you can end up getting board locked. So I think Freeze Shaman is one of those dangerous matchups that you have to know how to navigate properly.
Yes.
This is the reason why I don't play the deck anymore, because I want to play Contraband Stash, and it makes me sad. So
Yeah, I mean, Stash was really good when Secrets were good, and Secrets were really good when bouncing stuff was consistently good. But there were some games where I felt like a genius for Blackjack Stunnering Snowfall Guardian for about half a turn, and then like, wait a minute. They just do it again. And then like, it can be nice. It was nice when there were a lot of like Owl TKs or whatever, or where you needed to rebuy counterspells, ice traps, and yogs, right? Where you needed to rebuy non-class secrets. That was really where Stash felt strong to me. But as of right now, we just want to go for the efficient ways of generating cards, just discount Null, as opposed to playing piles of them. Though, like, you can still go get your Rune of the Archmage, and we've talked about enough ridiculous game states. But yeah, the 5-mana card that is a little bit more variable than we'd like, I think. Not even variable, just not as impactful, right? It's really dependent on your earlier rolls and also finding time to play it, because there were a bunch of times with Stash where I would have non-class cards in my hand, I just didn't have the time to play them yet. I had an Arcane Overflow sitting there, and I really wanted to cast it, but I couldn't find the time, and then my Stash would have been insane, but I didn't have time to set it up.
So how would you say you're usually mulliganing or game planning for different types of decks? For example, what do you do against Shaman if you're worried about getting board locked once they get Guardian plus Birds online?
So, when I'm thinking about the cards I always mulligan for, cards I always go for, start there. Cutlass. If not Cutlass and you have an Extortion, it's fine. They're just tradables, right? You just keep them. It's fine. No. Card's nuts. Usually Agent on the Coin. Usually. Almost always. Yeah. It's the only time I wouldn't keep Agent on the Coin is if I'm committing to a passage on one, and if I'm doing that, it's probably like Face Hunter or something. But it's usually Agent on the Coin. But Noel and Cutlass are the guaranteed keeps. If you look at the mulligan stats that we have here on the screen, like Swashbuckler's a pretty good keep. Let me look at this image. But you don't want to be swashing on one, but it's a pretty decent keep. No, actually, it's further down. Good, I can edit this whole thing. I hate keeping Swashbuckler. So, and be aware from the stats that we have on screen here, Mr. Smite is showing on screen as a 60% mulligan win rate. The keep rate is 1.1%. I'm assuming people are keeping it in very particular spots. I don't keep Mr. Smite, but Cutlass, Nolan, Agent on the Coin.
Interesting keep rate for prep there, Mr. Hat.
People are learning.
It's a pretty interesting keep rate.
It's low. Doesn't mean that it's wrong. It means that it's low right now. People should keep it more. Anyways, I don't know if it's right to usually keep it.
According to the chart, it's a downward arrow, which means that it's not a keep, and also a keep gets kept a very small amount of time, which means you should be keeping it even less than you're thinking. I basically think that you probably only keep prep when you already have reconnaissance.
Yeah. if I'm going to passage on 1 and I need to prep Swindle on 2 to activate the Swindle, then I will think about it then. But otherwise, yeah, it's pretty rare that I'll end up keeping it. It's Knoll and Cutlass, and if not Cutlass, then Extortion are generally the things that you want to keep. And you usually want to trade on 1. Like I said, the only time that you don't if you're passaging on 1, or if your opponent plays a turn 1 Iron Deep Trog, just play the Cutlass and kill it. Do not leave that card up. And yes, it's still good. Yes, Iron Deep Trog is still good.
But not
So,
oppressive.
Nope. It's the best card in Face Hunter still. It is the number 1 card in the mulligan in Face Hunter is Iron Deep Trog, and I won a THL match with it today because I was playing Fast Druid and they were playing Slow Druid, and I went turn 1 Trog and they went Pass, and I went turn 2 Mark of the Wild and they went Hero Power, and then I went turn 3 Mark of the Spike Shell, play another Trog, and the game went on for a little while longer, but they died. But yeah, it's you always Cutlass and Knoll, almost always trade on 1, and then there are a couple other ways you can go. So if you're against Face Hunter, like I talked about, that's the one where I can give the clearest direction. That's where I'm the most likely to passage on 1. Even if you have a Knoll in your opening hand, you don't get to play it that turn. The discount is permanent. So you passage into somewhere between 3 and 4 rogue cards. The only cards that don't discount are Smite and the Wand Thieves. Wand Thief is bugged right now. It's supposed to discount unless you're a mage, but it doesn't. So just be aware of that. And then Mr. Smite's a neutral, so that won't discount. But then you just passage, you put the cards back even if you play nothing. And then your Knoll costs 1 or 0 next turn, which means that you can get under the Doggy Biscuit or the Ramming Mount. And in that matchup, I'm also much more likely to keep a Plunder, keep other 1-drops, just so you can get going quickly. You want to make sure that you can cast your Knolls, you want to make sure you can activate your agents, but the most important thing is to not be dead, and the way to not be dead is to not let them stick a buff, and the way to do that is to remove their things. So that's pretty important. And against combo decks, you want to be a little bit slower, but not a lot slower, because if Mozaki goes Coin Flow on 2, you've got about 5 turns left before you have to kill them, and it's very difficult to disrupt them, and very difficult to dodge lethal. Possible, but you have to consistently apply pressure, be aware of Fire Sale. Why I think this deck is actually healthier than the win rate may lead you to believe, even though it plays turn 1 0 mana 4/5s quite often, is because the control matchup is where we struggle the most. We can absolutely do the OTK thing, but most of the control decks in the format are pretty good at gaining their life back and then counter-pressuring. That's why I think the worst matchups for this deck are Fell, Demon Hunter, and Handlock. Because in order to beat this deck, step 1, kill the rogue stuff. Step 2, heal back up from the initial chip damage. Step 3, counter-pressure and kill them. Because you don't really want to play the super long game in a deck with a lot of BS generation and reconnaissance. You can just start picking Rattlegores if you're the rogue and just plan for the long game. But the games that I lose the most often are when I get soul rended into 1 mana 6s and 3/3s that deal 6 and then a bunch of Flesh Giants. Those are the games where it's really hard for us to win, and Scabs in particular is very bad against Handlock because none of their stuff costs any mana anyways, so you don't really want to put all those Flesh Giants and Scavengers back in their hand, they just replay them all. So those are the matchups that are tougher, and you really want your recons to get more value. You want to play around the removal. If you have a board of 3 health minions against a mage, don't play out any more minions until you know for sure they're not going to fire sale you or until they actually do it. Same with 5 health minions into a Soul Rend turn. You don't just fire out a Knoll when your board has 3 minions against a Handlock, because then you're just asking to be cleared and not have follow-up.
So what about the mirror then? I imagine that can get kind of messy and weird.
Goofy is the word I would use, yes. Haven't figured it out yet, other than usually you want to be the second person to Scabs. Usually. Not always. I will actually, if my hand is decent, I will usually keep Scabs in the mirror if I'm on the coin. Let's take a second here.
Wait.
Talk about...
Oh, okay. In the mirror.
Yes.
And you know it's the mirror because...
Usually if they're a priest, then I know it's a mirror.
Okay.
But it's
or I guess maybe you played against them before because you're an high legend, but I don't know that there's a whole lot of strategy to be like,
So if their hero power is non-golden where I am,
this.
if their hero power where I am is non-golden, that's usually atypical. Or if I've played against them before, I play against a lot of the same people right now because the top 100, the way the matchmaking works, especially in top 50, you run into the same people over and over again all the time. It happens a lot. I played against the same people 3 or 4 times in an hour. Very common. So it's not too hard to know, when someone's on a particular deck. But if I'm against a deck that looks like a board-based matchup, and I'm on the coin and my hand is good, sometimes I will keep Scabs. Scabs is unbelievable. Just, like, really, really powerful. And you use the hero power a lot in this deck, which is why there isn't always... That's what I missed about evaluating him. The Vanish is obviously powerful, the 4-2s are powerful, but it's rare for those 4-2s to attack. People find ways to kill them. But the hero power is so useful of just getting that discount every single turn, and just starting turn 8 with a 2-mana new Edwin. You'll draw a ton of cards and make a giant Eddy, and often just kill them, or you get to chain, like you get to play multiple Wicked Stabs in a turn. You can go, if you have a prep, you can go Smite, Step Smite, Hero Power Stab, Prep Stab. That's 6, 12, 24 on turn 10. It's a lot of damage, right? Just with a prep, a step, a stab, and a smite.
Of note, though, the hero power, it is not a prep. It is still hero power. So if you're intending to do something like Scab's hero power Swindle, it does not work that way. You do still need to combo.
Yes. It doesn't just turn on the combo cards, so like it's definitely a little bit different. You have to be careful about combo in 2021 because trading does not activate combo. You do not want to tradable Swindle and then draw one card. You do not want to start your turn with hero power Swindle. You just got to make sure that combo gets activated. But yes, it's not glowing yellow. Let it mellow.
Yeah, there's a lot more actions we can do now that don't involve actually playing a card.
But yeah, Scabs is really, really powerful, is often a get-out-of-jail-free card, especially against, like, Paladins and Warriors and like, Miracle Priests, whatever. There are a lot of boards that you can just answer with a Scabs where they can't really recover. So, it's pretty powerful as far as late-game card. He's powerful in every Rogue deck right now. So...
You have a note here about Demon Hunter hero power? What's that about?
Okay, so there are some... Let me run through all the weird things with this deck. We talked about... So let's talk about Null costing first. No, we should talk about the hero power first, right? Because it's the first thing. So, the hero powers we talked about, the golden thing. If you have a regular Maestra, your hero power will not be golden. If you have a gold Maestra, your hero power will be golden. If you use the Demon Hunter hero power and you mouse over it in the history bar, it will say 2 and not 1. It will cost 2 mana and it will be red. So you know right away that they're a rogue, because rogues have a 2 mana hero power, so it views your hero power as 2 mana, even though you only spent 1 mana to do it. So be aware of that if you're playing with or against Demon Hunter. It's usually correct to do it anyways, because we're not playing Maestra to disguise anything. We're playing it to gain a bunch of free mana. That's the only reason why Maestra is here. If it didn't work that way, we would never play Maestra. It's only for the free mana. Yeah.
And that's part of why it has been reconsidered for competitive viability, because it's no longer just a kind of jokey thing. It provides real value, and we're now trying out adjusting the rules a bit so that people can play that in THL, and I think they're trying to come up with something for the upcoming qualifiers as well.
Yep. And when it comes to Null costing has a bunch of stuff going on right now. So if you passage into a Wand Thief, if you draw a Wand Thief with a Mastodon, it won't discount your Nulls. It doesn't matter if you're mage or not, it's just bugged right now. How it's supposed to work is if you're mage, it shouldn't discount at all, but the game considers hybrid cards to be neutrals, so it will not discount your null.
I feel like I've also had a weird thing where I've shadow stepped a Wand Thief,
yes,
and then you lose a discount that you already had. It's very odd.
If you shadow step a non-rogue card, for some reason, it increases the mana cost of your Nulls. Like I shadow step a Conrathod Ebenlock today, and it made my Null cost 1 more for whatever reason. It's very strange. Also, if you draw your opening hand, and you break the mask on, say, turn 1, right? You play a Swashbuckler, your Null goes to 3 because you drew a rogue card and you generated 1. And you still had 3 other cards in your hand. when you passage next turn, when those same cards come back, your Null will now cost 0. Because for whatever reason, the game marks the cards in your opening hand as cards from the first class that you were. So the cards that you drew in your opener are considered Paladin cards or whatever.
Wow.
So when you passage them away, then when you get them back, they count as additional discounts for your Null. 100% a bug. Not supposed to work that way. But just be aware that as of right now, if you break the mask and then passage after, you still will get your Null discounts on the cards that were in your opening hand after the mulligan. And also the turn 1 draw. But it's only cards that you drew while you were wearing the mask.
And presumably something that would stick around, but I guess I'm not sure because of all the weird stuff is, say you Swashbuckler Wand Thief, and then you do a passage, and you get those cards from another class back off the passage. Will it do another discount or no?
That should work, and it does work, because it does add the cards back to your hand. But it's doing it with rogue cards too, because they were in your hand when you weren't a rogue, they're still considered non-rogue cards for Noble purposes. Very weird. It just means that sometimes when you passage early, your Nulls will just be cheaper, and it feels like that shouldn't happen. It definitely shouldn't happen. I'm going to call that a bug. Yeah. Let's see, any other weirdness? No, I think we covered all of the mechanic weirdness. Yeah. Deck is fun. Really powerful, really good at getting on the board. I strongly recommend trying it out. It is difficult to play optimally, and like all rogue decks historically, you have more value than you can use in a game, so you have to decide when you play a card for suboptimal value. Sometimes it means saving your Shadow Step for big endgame plays, sometimes it means using your Shadow Step for Wand Thief on turn 2. Often it's for a prize plunderer, but you'll just step stuff for whatever reason. Also, it's very common to trade with Null, step it, trade again. That happens a lot. There's a lot of flexibility and nuance, a lot of crazy game states that come up because of all the burgling, and also a lot of consistent damage output. So really, really fun. Give it some time to learn it, because it's not necessarily the most intuitive deck to play, but it's super enjoyable and kind of addictive.
Yeah, I've been having a ton of fun with it, and I usually jump around on decks, but something about this rogue has had me very engaged and wanting to sort of learn all the little nuances, because, a lot of the charm is with this effect of getting cards from another class. You have a lot of difference from game to game, just sort of built in. So I think some of that sameness that we've felt with other decks recently in terms of how they play out Garrote Rogue, Mazaki Rage, OTK Demon Hunter, and, Quest decks, whatever. It's really been broken up by a deck like this, where part of the deck is playing Wand Thieves and Swashbucklers, and so every game just really feels different most of the time.
Yep. And this deck is kind of also the send-off for the incredibly powerful 1-mana rogue cards, and a lot of the rogue cards that we're moving on from this upcoming year. I'm going to put this on the screen, because I can. I made a list of exclusively 1-mana rogue cards that are rotating out. It's on the screen now. There are 6 of them. Blackjack Stunner, Brain Freeze, Prize Plunderer, Secret Passage, Spy Mistress, and Wand Thief. Spy Mistress is the worst one, I think, which is ridiculous. Rogue is going to be fairly unrecognizable. We also lost the Og Merchants, of course. There's going to be a lot of things that have changed. And Edelweiss, you talked about Field Contact, being bored of seeing that and glad it's not around, but we had it in Barons, and it was fair-ish. It had good turns, but the deck wasn't broken. It's really just the Octobot reducing things to 0 and the Garrote win condition that really pushed it beyond what we're used to, and it's probably the 4th best rogue deck at the moment. Garrote is. It's still very good. That doesn't mean it's a bad deck, but really the engine of reducing cards to 0 is what made Contact good. I think actually Contact is just an accomplice for Octobot. And Octobot kind of really thrived in having high density of 1 mana cards that got reduced to 0. So these are going away. Rogue without Secret Passage, Prize Plunder will be nearly unrecognizable because those cards have been class defining for a year now. But yeah, I don't think that we'll be experiencing what we're doing now in the beginning of next year. But will this deck get nerfed? Will something in this deck get nerfed? What do you think, Edel?
Well, you mentioned previously that they really wanted us to play hero cards over the holidays. And
Mission
think
accomplished.
we've been doing that. So I would expect some of those things to be worse than they are. Probably not the ones they buffed. Those ones still seem fine. But Scabs is a little nuts. Warlock Hero is still pretty good. Even in the quest handlock that we were wondering, well, do you even want to get rid of the tap? Yeah, you do. It's worth it. Fel DH, I mean, when you get Kurtrus on 6, it's a little rough.
I mean, you did Cariel. Cariel's good. Remember her? Remember Cariel? Playing against Cariel, just
I think
like
people are saying.
Playing against Cariel is like playing against Baron's Priest. I never kill them. It takes forever, and then they just heal it all back, and I leave.
Oh, and I never want to do the math.
I still don't understand why that weapon does not lose durability. It would never come up. It would literally never come up.
It's, I guess, the flavor reason of being immovable, but like, I wish her life total was a little bit more movable because I feel like it just stays right where it is. And, yeah. But I think that there's opportunity to do a pass on hero cards. Like, and I don't know, if Scabs was 8, would he come out of any decks? Think no? I'm pretty sure the answer is no.
Yeah.
But that's not this deck nerf, that's a Scabs nerf, because I think Scabs is the most offensive thing in Poison Rogue, which might also be the best Rogue deck in the format. It's up there, it's very close to this one. Because Poison Rogue, you don't even need the weapon anymore. Poison Rogue is a Garrote deck now, where they'll hit you with the weapon maybe once or twice just to draw cards, just to activate Cutting Class. But then they just go Cloak on 5, Cloak on 6, Scabs on 7, which unfreezes their face. If it's frozen for whatever reasons, they can hit you with the weapon again. And then turn 8, they hero power out the Guild Trader and just kill you with Sinister Strikes and Wicked Stabs and Garrotes. It's very, very powerful, and isn't all that weak to weapon destruction. So, I mean, if they just instead deleted Cloak from the format, I would be thrilled. Because that's the card that I think is actually problematic here. But Scabs, I could easily see it being moved by a mana. Just because it's really, really efficient at 7.
When was Cloak printed?
Darkmoon Fair, it's leaving. Don't worry, it won't be around much longer. It's almost gone. It's almost over. Oh, thank God, it's almost over. Yeah. Question.
Somehow, timeout never felt as bad. But I guess that's because it was in Paladin.
I mean, if you got double time out into Shirvala Holy Wrath, like I don't know if I'd call that a great experience. It's fine.
I hope we can move past those cards.
I don't think that deck would have existed without timeout, so like I understand the argument of the Paladin thing, and it was bad in Paladin-based minion decks. I don't think Rogue needed to do it. But
another matchup where it feels really good to get Mask of Cthulhu. Mask of Cthulhu off Wand Thief. Usually the pick.
Often. I'll take Arcane Overflow sometimes. Like, if I'm in minion matchups, if you can also prep out an Arcane Overflow on 3, you win the board matchups. That's how you win. That's how you win those. Kill their thing, make a thing. It's pretty good. Yeah. My question to both of you is, does Noel need a nerf?
I don't know. It's kind of an odd one. It's very high tempo. Previously, things that cost free and are high tempo swings get some kind of adjustment. I don't know if it would be go to 6 or go to 7, something that makes it not come out on turn 1, 2 as often. I think the closest comparison recently was, or semi-recently, it's been a minute, was Mogu Flesh Shaper.
That was only used for Evolve Evil, though.
Yeah, which this isn't. This is just the stats and tempo. So I guess I wonder, if it ends up being a 3/4 instead of a 4/5, does that kill the card? I don't know.
Minions for minions' sake do not make me feel like I don't know. I do not have as much experience as you two, and so my view is probably warped, but I do not feel the insane power spike of Null. Like, I don't feel an insane power spike when I play a Null. I feel like it's something I had to work for quite a bit to get there. The card that I would be more concerned about, because it falls right in line with my agenda, would be both Preparation and Reconnaissance. Maybe if those cards could not reduce cards to below 1 mana, maybe it wouldn't feel as bad. Even though I feel like Reconnaissance very, very rarely reduces cards to 0 mana.
You're usually unhappy when you get something that small, too.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It feels like a pretty big cost to play anyway. And also, like, if Prep made your 2 mana cards cost 1 mana instead of 0 mana, and you couldn't play it on 1 mana cards, might be different too. I don't know. It's
That would probably
probably, but I don't know. It's one of those things. It's like reducing cards that shouldn't be reduced to 0 mana to 0 mana is a dangerous thing. And that's just how it's been.
Yeah. In this deck, I feel like what we're doing with Maestra Rogue in general isn't about playing as many 0 mana cards as we want. It's just extracting maximum value out of it. Recon feels like about as healthy of a card that you can prep out as possible. Like, you'll get a big dumb thing sometimes for like a couple turns early that's not in your class, but the variability combined with it just being, the deck is so board centric that you're still pretty vulnerable to removal. The thing that makes me a little concerned about Noel is just how hard it is to be a board deck against this deck. That is the main thing that concerns me. It's really hard to build a board when your opponent gets to play 0 mana 4/5 rush into SI7 Extortion Prize Plunder and just clear your board out of nowhere. But a deck that's good at fighting for board that enables other board control-based strategies in the meta, I'm also not super upset about. Like, I'm okay if that's where the power is. So I like the idea of a stat nerf on Noel, maybe just a 4/4. Maybe just 1 health. Just to make it a little bit easier to kill. And to make it so that if you're trading in the mirror, they both die.
Yeah, that would be pretty important. But thinking back, the 2 mana 2/3 that became a 3/4 with Rush if it was active, that was good and that was enough. So I wonder if changing it to a 3/4 might also be fine.
It might be. I think the stats are the direction to go, because if you go for cost, what you're doing is making the card more inconsistent but not less powerful. Like, it's less consistent but not less powerful. And I don't want to just reward the high rolls now, because when you're narrowing the opportunity but still allowing them to happen, then it makes you feel worse when you get nulled into next week, and you're still just rewarding passage on 1. It's just a hair slower. You actually make passage on 1 more lucrative because you have more ground to cover. So I don't want to incentivize that kind of play. I'd rather make the payoff just a little bit less. If we even need to do it, probably a good idea, but I think if you move Scabs to 8 and you end up changing a lot of stuff. I'm amazed, thinking about it, that Prize Plunder hasn't dodged anything in the year it's been around, just because it feels like it's impossible to stick any board against that card, but it's also very roguey and I love playing with it, so I'm glad they haven't, but it's frustrating to play against sometimes. By the way, what's your record for Prize Plunder with this deck? What's your biggest one?
Oh gosh, with this deck, I don't know. I
I
feel like
plundered
I
for
usually
12
got...
the other day.
Oh my god.
12.
I've got decent sized ones with the cute version, but I think I don't usually go higher than 5 most of the time.
It doesn't come up very often, but I was against a free shaman, and I was like, all right, you know what? I'm not going to play for board. I'm just going to wait for their stupid bird, and they went bird lurker below and cleared my board, and then I cleared their board right back. With the first plunder was only for 9, it cleared the lurker, and then the next one was for 12, so that killed the bird.
Yikes.
What you can do. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised they make a couple other nerfs to the format too. This format's amazing. I think it's really, really great. But there are some rough edges that I expect them to touch up when they get back to the office. I wouldn't be surprised if Quest Warrior gets a small nudge just because of how dominant it is at multiple spots in the ladder, even though it hasn't translated to high legend success. I wouldn't be surprised Mozaki Mage gets hit a little bit, because good, I'm so tired of getting floated and then dying. So tired of it. And I hope Cloak of Shadows gets deleted. But I don't know. I don't need to change much, and the amount of variety that's on display right now is really, really incredible. I think they did a fantastic job with this expansion, and 6th sets, the final sets of the year, are historically very difficult to get right. And then December patches to balance them before they leave the office are historically even harder to get right, and they knocked them both out of the park. Very impressed.
Yeah. So, yeah, any final comments?
I've talked to a lot of people, especially people that don't normally rogue, and a lot of people have been, just anecdotally, just really enjoying the experience of playing this deck. Even if you don't normally rogue, I recommend trying this out. It's the perfect encapsulation of what Hearthstone wants to be. Playing for board, doing goofy stuff, different every game. It's really enjoyable. Gosh, and I guess that'll do it, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Welcome to the new year, right?
Yes. Welcome to New Year. We'll do another show next year, I guess. Whoa! Whoa! Get to make that joke annually. Well, we have many folks to like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website, coincede.com. You can find our content info, show notes, patron information at patreon.com/coincede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Right into our email, coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede, like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. Like some CC swag? Heading over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Doge DK, Proby1, Crush, Cap, Squatch, David P, Snowpack, Lucky, Fade to Black, Wild, Lou, Internet Wizard, and Jeremy T. Coin concedes. Botticus.
All right. I would like to coin concede to Mad K17 in the Discord, who said some nice things about me on the episode last week. And I will respond by saying that despite not knowing much about the format, as I do not play it as much, that doesn't mean that the 4 years of me being a quote-unquote content creator and podcaster does not mean I am not going to have strong opinions on things, because that makes for, or at least what I think makes for, enjoyable things, because being very wrong and very right about stuff is much better than kind of getting stuff sometimes. So I'm going to, try to continue to say wild, outlandish things and hope I'm right sometimes.
Well, glad to have you, and I agreed with what Matt K said. Advice. Talk to us.
I concede to Mr. and Mrs. Giorgio, Cora and Sage's parents. I believe we referred to them as the lead Hearthstone designer producers, given that both of their children work on the Hearthstone design team. I was deeply amused by the amount of Hearthstone played in that family, and they're not even on the clock. It's wild. But yeah, I was very happy that I got to stay with them. Initially, I was thinking I was going to stay at a hotel in downtown Chicago and sort of, arrange places to meet up or schedule some hangout at their house, but they were kind enough to let me spend the night with them, which was a load off my mind. It was really convenient, and they were excellent hosts. So huge coin concede to their whole family, really.
The Georgios are good people. I would like to coin concede to DracoCat and Luker, because Luker hosted a Hearthstone content creator Secret Santa, and I asked for a ridiculous hat, and DracoCat hooked me up with a coronavirus hat. It is an actual like foam coronavirus spore I don't know, whatever this thing is, cell.
I mean, it's a virus.
Yeah.
With the spike protein.
Okay, it's whatever. I'm not.
It's pretty ridiculous.
It is pretty ridiculous. I don't know what this is. I'm not a science doctor, so like whatever. But it's
You're not an any doctor.
it's no. I mean, I'm a rogue doctor.
Okay.
But yes, it's green and foamy and silly, and so thank you DracoCat and thank you Luca for hosting. And you know what? Thank you to Bodicus and Edelweiss for another great year of coin concede, even though the real life world was a little sketchy out there. I think that right here we had a good time putting on the show this week. Something that I looked forward to every week, regardless of how I felt about the game or about real life. Every single time I came in the show, I'm like, ugh, gotta rush to put the show notes. I'm not sure if I can do this. I'm not sure if I can find the energy by the end of the show. Always in a better mood. Thank you both for being there right with me. So, that's going to do it for our show this year. Keep calm, and don't prep your swindle. If you see us on the ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Calm down! I'm a doctor!
All right. Stopping recording. Yeah, that bit with Bodicus and I reminiscing about Rogue and then playing the whiz-bang sound effect, that was not scripted. It's just who we are.
I still enjoy thinking about 3 mana prep
That was...
and prepping out Fan of Knives.
Raiding Party had to ruin this for all of us. Stupid 0-mana Ancestral Recall.
Dude, gosh darn Raiding Party.
It proved you right about Wagglepick, though.
Hey,
Man.
that card was still good after those nerfs.
It was. I remember when I realized that deck was super degenerate, is when we started playing Life Drinker just to have something else to Wagglepick back for damage. I was like, this probably isn't okay, huh? Because it was just every card that said damage in the entire format.
Yeah,
like,
remember when you were like Thug and Wagglepick just don't go together? Like no, they do. They hit for a lot, and turns out
we cut Thug though. We end up cutting Thug from the deck because like we just wanted more Southsea deck.
Didn't it go back in after they nerfed?
After the nerf, I think it did, but they didn't nerf Dr. Broom Hero at that time, so I didn't care.
I remember Thug was good for a long time, though.
It was.
Was Thug before Wagglepick, then they added
Thug
Wagglepick?
was a year prior. Yeah, Thug was Witchwood.
Yeah.
One of the few good cards in Witchwood that didn't say Otter even. And if I recall...
Well, it did. It said odd because it had an odd casting cost, and then
right. Yeah.
and
Sure
then
good
you
odd
had
rogue.
an odd hero power rogue. Yeah.
I have
Pretty.
fond memories of playing Odd Rogue in a cafe in San Francisco, waiting for my brother to pick me up. It was nice.
It's an odd descriptor. Fond. I don't know that that would be the one
I
I would
love that
use,
deck.
but
I love that deck.
So
it's so funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny because like Gan and Baku were. It felt like the opposite of creative, I guess you could say. But you're such a creative deck builder. It doesn't feel like those two collide too well because Odd Rogue is just like, hey, we're gonna take all of the best 1 and 3 mana cards and maybe a couple 5s.
Well, okay, so I like aggressive things, and another
Same.
thing is I like hero powers, and sometimes that manifests as decks where you're on a more controlling strategy because then you get to hero power more. And sometimes that manifests as this hero power is really good at killing you.
Yeah.
It's Odd and Even was interesting and creative for like a tavern brawl amount of time. The problem was that it was instead a full year in a otherwise weak year. But it would have been really cool for like a week to figure it out and then not do it anymore. But instead,
it would have been
two.
It would have been 2 years.
By the way,
It should have been 2 years. Thankfully, they stopped that.
I had a fun moment playing against Cora where I realized that my Reckless Apprentice did more damage than Mordrish. So got to finish the game with Hero Power Reckless Apprentice instead of Hero Power Mordrish because my Hero Power is dealt 11.
That's a lot of damage.
Wait, your hero power did what?
11.
Yeah, 11. So it's if you play 2 wildfires before Dawn Grasp, then then you end up getting 3 wildfires, so it ends up being base 5, and then you honorable kill 3 times, and it deals 11.
Oh,
That's
because plus
not
2.
what happened. But yes, I did much honorable killing that game.
But what did happen?
She was playing Kibler Druid, and I just got a lot of HKs that game.
Well, you
The
had to
turn she
get...
was-
Did you play Dawn Grasp?
Yes.
So you had to play 2 wildfires, because if you only played 1, then Dawn Grasp replayed, unless you had a fire sale, and it replayed the fire sale instead.
Yes, I did play both wildfires. But yes, I also got a lot of HKs.
Yeah, 3.
I might have... Oh, I thought...
So when you say
I
11,
misheard.
you're not meaning
I thought you said some kind of line of Reckless Apprentice HKs.
No.
Whatever. Yes. 3 wildfires and a lot of HKs.
3.
11 damage hero power.
It's plus 3 and then plus 6. It's
so then
3.
you dealt 22? Jesus Christ.
That's a lot of hero power damage.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
The turn
Yeah.
she was going to kill me, I think she was playing with her food a bit. I found an amplified snow flurry. So getting back those moon-touched amulets did not do the trick that turn that it was supposed to.
Well, everyone, we're going to bring the stream down. Thanks for hanging out. And we will see you in January. Bye.
Bye.